Hello everyone, and welcome to my Sister Wives For You channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Since Sister Wives has been airing for more than 10 years, fans have witnessed the many ways in which the cast members respond to various circumstances. But Mary, one cast member in particular, has never been good at getting along with other people. She has had numerous arguments with Christine, Janelle, Kody, and almost all of the other family members. She also had the poorest bond with the children. In one recent instance, the children themselves disclosed that Mary behaved in a highly poisonous manner and appeared to enjoy punishing them. These accusations are quite grave. So why, other from Robyn, didn't Mary get along with any of the other cast members? Since Mary was Kody's first wife, it stands to reason that she would get along with the other wives or have authority over them, but that wasn't the case. Kody spent the least amount of time with Mary, despite the fact that his fixation on Robyn naturally caused him to become estranged from his other spouses. Mary's argument with the Brown children in Sister Wives. A few years ago, Peyton Brown disclosed that living with Mary was a complete nightmare. He went on to say that Robyn was the family's savior and the reason everything changed. He even charged Mary with assaulting Michael T. and mistreating the children. This was unexpected, and even Michael T. came forward to acknowledge that she had been abused by Mary. Mary was described as a strict parent by a number of other Brown children, but they denied that she ever physically assaulted them. Mary's connection with the Brown children was erratic, and they frequently thought she was the worst mom. The tension was exacerbated by her inability to fully embrace her own child's sexuality. Why did Mary never get along with other cast members on Sister Wives? Despite having quite varied marital situations, Kody's 4 wives all experienced the same level of stress. But when it came to altercations and societal repercussions, Mary was the most notable. Except for Robyn, she didn't get along with any of Kody's previous spouses, but even that connection has since broken down. Furthermore, Mary and the children don't get along well. Contrary to popular assumption, she had the worst marital life with Kody, despite being the most unsure about quitting the marriage. She fell in love with a person she met online while she was still married to him, but she later discovered that person was a scammer. What then caused Mary to find it so hard to get along with people? To begin with, she was very submissive and lacked aggressiveness. She let everyone walk all over her, especially Robyn and Kody. They even tricked her into taking the smallest piece of land, which led to a major problem later. She just nodded without objecting, even when they questioned her main selections. The worst thing about Mary was that she never publicly challenged family members when she was injured. As a human, she felt horrible, but she suppressed all of her feelings until they became overwhelming. She eventually suffered a severe breakdown and argued with everyone, which caused her to become estranged from the family. Mary has no one left to connect with but her new group of pals, while Janelle and Christine continue to be friends. She was unable to build solid, enduring relationships because she was unable to advocate for herself. For years, Sister Wives sold itself as a messy but functioning polygamist family, chaotic, sure, but built on a foundation of faith, shared values, and unity. But behind the TLC cameras, beneath the glossy family meetings and emotional couch confessionals, one cast member was quietly building up a storm of resentment. And now, the truth has finally spilled out. The real reason behind the explosive fallout with Janelle, Christine, and even Kody Brown wasn't just petty squabbles, jealousy, or differing opinions on child-rearing. No, the spark that lit this emotional wildfire was far more calculated, far more personal, and far more painful than anyone ever suspected. It was all about power, perception, and long-buried truths that one cast member felt were twisted by the rest, and deliberately so. The cast member in question? Mary Brown. For years, Mary was portrayed as the quiet martyr, the first wife who had sacrificed everything for the sake of polygamy. She had endured loneliness, infertility struggles, and emotional distance from Kody, all while supporting his other marriages. Fans sympathized with her, especially after the catfishing scandal and the emotional estrangement that followed. But recently, Mary has gone scorched earth in private, and insiders say she's no longer holding back. According to sources close to the Brown family, Mary's falling out with Janelle, Christine, and even Kody reached a boiling point after a massive behind-the-scenes confrontation where Mary accused them all of weaponizing the narrative, both in life and on camera, against her. She believes she was systematically edited into the villain, her pain turned into plot lines, her boundaries mocked, and her loyalty ignored. And now, she's done playing along. The real breaking point came not with a camera or a headline but with a single group text that changed everything. During an off-season family planning session, producers reached out to the wives about filming a special reunion panel, a retrospective of their years together. The proposal included a raw and unfiltered sit-down with Kody and all the wives, past and present. Everyone seemed cautiously open to it, except Mary. When she voiced concerns about how the reunion would be edited and whether she'd once again be framed as bitter or jealous, Janelle allegedly replied with a cold message, "Maybe if you didn't always play the victim, people wouldn't see you that way." Christine chimed in, trying to soften the blow, but still suggested Mary needed to stop rehashing the past. And Kody? He responded with nothing but a thumbs-up emoji, offering no defense, no empathy, not even acknowledgement. That moment broke something in Mary. After over 30 years of loyalty, spiritual dedication, and personal sacrifice, she realized they no longer saw her as part of the family, just part of the drama. And so she responded with a storm. In a long message, Mary accused Janelle and Christine of rewriting history, claiming they had been emotionally cold toward her from the beginning. She alleged that they ostracized her behind the scenes, formed an alliance based on shared grievances with Kody, and only ever bonded when it was convenient to mutually exclude her. She called out Janelle for treating me like a threat instead of a sister wife, and Christine for weaponizing her departure as if I was the reason she was miserable. And Kody? Mary didn't hold back. She told him he had abandoned me long before Christine left, and that his silence in the text thread proved, "You've never had my back." The group chat erupted into chaos. Janelle fired back, claiming Mary had always kept her at arm's length. Christine doubled down, stating that Mary had refused every attempt at emotional connection and only wanted relationships on her terms. The messages leaked almost immediately. Screenshots circulated among the kids, and eventually to producers. And while TLC didn't include the full exchange in the next season, they hinted at it with ominous narration and selective soundbites. But the real story, the raw story, was much darker. Mary had finally called out the structure of the entire family. She claimed that the polygamous dream had been a lie, that the sister wives were never equals, never truly bonded, and that Kody used the wives' insecurities to keep them divided. She accused the family of silencing her, publicly and privately, and allowing viewers to believe she was just sad, just bitter, when really, she had been left behind emotionally years ago. What's worse, this wasn't the first time Mary had tried to confront them. Sources say she had written a private letter to Christine before her separation, urging her not to rewrite everything into a personal redemption arc. She'd asked for an honest conversation about the past, about their early years, about the emotional neglect Mary felt when Janelle moved in and Christine followed. That letter? Never answered. Instead, Christine left the family and started building a new life, cheered on by fans and promoted by TLC as the poster child for female empowerment. Mary, meanwhile, was left to sit in the ashes, with nothing but the memories of a marriage that had long since crumbled and sister-wife relationships that were never truly repaired. And now that she's found her voice again, Mary isn't staying silent. In fact, she's preparing her own counterstrike. Insiders report that Mary is working on a tell-all memoir that details the early fractures within the Brown household, long before the show began. She plans to detail how Kody began favoring Robyn long before it was visible to cameras, how Janelle refused to speak to her for months after moving into the family, and how Christine acted sweet on camera but cold behind the scenes. The book, tentatively titled First But Forgotten, will reportedly include journal entries, unpublished photos, and transcripts of text messages that paint a very different version of events from what fans have seen on air. And if Mary's tone in recent social media posts is any indication, she's ready to burn bridges. In one cryptic message, she wrote, "Sometimes people don't want to hear your truth because it disrupts the version of the past they've built for themselves." Another read, "Loyalty is beautiful until it becomes a leash." And fans are starting to listen. A growing number of viewers have begun to rewatch earlier episodes with new eyes, noting how often Mary was excluded, how her emotional needs were minimized, and how her efforts at reconciliation were dismissed. TikTok users have compiled dozens of clips showing the microaggressions, the awkward silences, the times she was interrupted or ignored in group scenes. Reddit threads now buzz with speculation that sister wives might have spent over a decade subtly villainizing Mary to preserve a cleaner storyline for the other wives' exits. The tide is turning, and Mary, long painted as the one who just couldn't move on, is now being seen as the one who was pushed aside again and finally refused to stay quiet. Even the kids are divided. While some, like Leon, continue to support Mary publicly, others are said to be uncomfortable with the brewing war. TLC producers are reportedly trying to manage damage control, urging cast members not to take things to social media while new footage is still being edited. But the truth is out. The real reason behind Mary's fight with Janelle, Christine, and Kody isn't petty. It's decades of emotional isolation, strategic exclusion, and systemic silence. And now that she's broken free from it, she's not interested in rebuilding burnt bridges. She's lighting new ones. Mary Brown, once the most underestimated member of the Brown family, has stepped out of the shadows, and this time, she's not waiting for approval. Not from Janelle. Not from Christine. And certainly not from Kody. This is her era. And it starts with telling the truth, even if it tears the sister wives' legacy apart. As Mary stood at the crossroads of truth and retribution, there was no more pretending. No more standing behind Kody with a forced smile while he preached about unity. No more tolerating passive-aggressive remarks from Janelle or veiled judgments from Christine. And certainly, no more playing the role of the dutiful first wife while being emotionally discarded and publicly ridiculed. After more than 30 years of pushing down her voice in favor of the greater, spiritual family image, Mary had reached a point of no return. And her battle with Janelle, Christine, and Kody wasn't just about the betrayal of sisterhood or marriage. It was about the rewriting of her life story. She wasn't just angry that they had left. She was furious that they had left and taken her narrative with them. The cast-wide conflict exploded into something even producers couldn't contain. What began as a behind-the-scenes rift soon became a full-blown PR crisis. TLC, already invested in multiple spin-offs centered around Christine's remarriage and Janelle's new life of freedom, found themselves in an awkward bind. They couldn't afford to alienate Mary. She was still legally tied to the original family's origin story. But they also couldn't give her too much power without unraveling the carefully constructed redemption arcs of Christine and Janelle. So they tried to limit her screen time, downplay her frustration, and push her into emotional corners, editing her into quiet reflection, strategic silences, and clipped reactions. But Mary, now wide awake, began pushing back. She refused to film grief monologues without being allowed to address what actually happened. She stopped participating in group couch confessionals. She even brought her own production assistant to set, someone loyal only to her. It was Mary's silent declaration that she was no longer anyone's side character. The fallout with Janelle became particularly toxic. Their relationship, once a cold but civil cohabitation, morphed into outright disdain. Off camera, Mary allegedly told producers that Janelle had never once hugged me without a camera rolling, and that her warm, sisterly persona was crafted for viewers, not reality. Janelle, in return, confided to producers that Mary had a martyr complex and refused to take accountability for her own walls. She shuts everyone out and then blames us for not knocking louder, Janelle reportedly said. But Christine's role in the feud was more complicated. She had once tried to be the mediator, the cheerleader, the bridge. But when she left the family and found national support for her independence, she stopped reaching out. And when Mary finally confronted her, face to face, about abandoning their sisterhood without a word, Christine's answer was cold. You weren't there for me when I needed to leave. Why would I be there for you now? That line cut deeper than anything Kody had ever said. It confirmed Mary's worst fear, that she had been excluded not just emotionally, but strategically. She was the scapegoat. The one they could all pile their unresolved guilt on. The one who symbolized everything they were trying to escape. Polygamy, repression, sacrifice without reward. And Kody? Kody, ever the coward when it came to emotional confrontation, simply withdrew. He told producers he wanted peace and didn't want to get involved in the women's dynamics. Mary confronted him off camera, demanding to know if he truly believed she had failed them, or if he simply found it easier to let them blame her. He didn't answer. He just shrugged and said, I can't fix what's already broken. That was the last real conversation they had. Meanwhile, Mary began reclaiming her platform. She went live on Instagram more often, answering fan questions with a calm, confident edge. She started hinting at the tension, posting quotes like, You don't lose friends. You just learn who is never really with you. In one particularly telling live stream, she read aloud a follower's question, Did Janelle and Christine gang up on you behind the scenes? Mary paused, smiled thinly, and replied, You'd be surprised how much silence can say. The internet erupted. Hashtags like #JusticeForMary and #FirstWifeSpeaks trended on TikTok and X, formerly Twitter. Fans began compiling evidence from earlier seasons, moments when Mary was excluded from group hugs, family decisions, or even family vacations. Clips resurfaced of Janelle saying, I keep my distance, and Christine admitting she struggled to connect with Mary for decades. One user wrote, The real villain was never Mary. It was the emotional neglect they all agreed to. Another simply posted, They left, and then blamed her for being alone. Mary's story began gaining traction outside the Sister Wives bubble. Podcasts, tabloids, and feminist media started covering her emotional arc as a cautionary tale of spiritual manipulation and gendered sacrifice. She was invited to guest on multiple reality TV panels, including one on women's empowerment, where she subtly shaded TLC by saying, Sometimes the biggest edits happen in real life, not on TV. She was no longer just a reality star. She was becoming a voice. And as that voice grew louder, Kody, Janelle, and Christine grew more uncomfortable. Eventually, Kody tried to spin the narrative. In a solo interview, he accused Mary of holding on to bitterness and living in the past. But it fell flat. The same man who had once said he felt nothing for her was now trying to act like her spiritual well-being was a shared concern. The hypocrisy was glaring. Christine's camp issued a vague statement. We all have our own truths. Janelle stayed silent. But the damage was done. The family that once stood as a symbol of unconventional unity was now fractured beyond recognition. The fights weren't just personal, they were generational, ideological, and inevitable. What truly stung, according to insiders, was that Mary never wanted it to end like this. She had held on for years because she believed not just in the principle of plural marriage, but in the people who promised to love her through it. She stayed loyal when everyone else walked away. She kept the secrets. She absorbed the blame. And in the end, the only reward she received was isolation, vilification, and a narrative she no longer recognized. So now, Mary is writing her own ending. No longer bound by loyalty to people who abandoned her, no longer willing to be the footnote in other women's triumphs, and certainly no longer afraid of speaking her truth, even if it burns the foundation of Sister Wives to the ground. And maybe that's what makes this fallout so explosive. It's not just about one fight. It's about decades of gaslighting, favoritism, and selective storytelling, finally crashing down on the woman who stayed silent the longest. Mary Brown is no longer the wounded first wife waiting for an apology. She is the storm they never saw coming. And this time, the story is hers.